Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And appreciate all of you in chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for those waiting. Again, we had another issue with the sound. Don't know why. Have no idea. It's, I don't know. I didn't touch it. I don't know. I cannot tell you how inept I am when it comes to the tech stuff. There's probably some setting or something has to be done every time, but I don't know. I don't have any idea. Well, welcome. We appreciate you. Welcome to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn podcast. If you're not a subscriber, click on subscribe. Click on the little bell. You'll get notifications. If you are listening through our audio only podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, which is literally all over the place, I would appreciate it if you'd come over to the YouTube channel. I'll put the link in there when you're listening. You can look on the show description. There'll be a link in there, and then click on that link, and then click on subscribe and hit the little bell. You'll get notifications. There's not a notification system in the audio that I'm aware of. So wherever you listen to podcasts, that's where I'll be. So, follower of the way. By the way, I did a show yesterday. I did a broadcast yesterday. It was on how God sees you, not like you see you, but how he sees you. I'd encourage you, if you didn't listen to that broadcast, I would encourage you to listen to that. It's free. It's under the live tab. Quite a compelling thumbnail there. And, I would encourage you to listen to that, especially now coming into the holidays. There's people that are down. This is a hard time for a lot of people. So I would appreciate that. Thank you. So, follower of the way, what kind of cult am I in? I get asked that question a lot. And I'm surprised that I get asked that question. I'm still surprised that I get asked that question because I've explained it a lot of times on this channel and other places where I appear, and on Christopher's channel. And a lot of times, good morning. A lot of times people will ask me, it's sort of their vetting process, if they're going to listen and subscribe. And they say, well, what denomination are you? And I tend to always ask, well, that's an interesting question. Why do you ask? And they will say, well, I'm just, before I, get involved in listening, you've said some things that I don't really understand. And so I don't want to get involved in something. I want to be discerning. And I appreciate that. Sure. I absolutely do. You always want to be discerning. Absolutely. But they say that, and they, when I say, well, when you say denomination, what are you referring to? And they always look at me, or they always, if I'm on the phone with them, they always have a little bit of a surprise, and I can always discern the surprise. And they say, you have doctorates in theology and you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about denomination? And I respond with, no, I know what denominations are. I'm just curious what they mean to you. What does it mean to you? And they'll look at me kind of funny and say, well, I'm Baptist. I say, okay. Well, there's about 17 different subsets of Baptists. Which Baptist are you? Just Baptist. Okay, well, are you independent fundamental Baptist? Are you Reformed Baptist? Or, which are you? Which is the Baptist? Which Baptist are you? There's Southern Baptist. There's all these different things. And, it is what it is. It is what it is. And then I'll say, there's Methodist, there's African Methodist Episcopal, there's Episcopal, there's Presbyterian, there's Presbyterian PCA, there's PCUSA, there's all the different ones. And so there's all these different ones, and I always find it funny. Because they're so caught up in this. And I don't know if maybe you are. Maybe this is how you measure people. And I appreciate that. I can appreciate the fact that people measure people different ways. And that is, for some, an easy way to do it. But I tell people, once they're finished with all of that, or once I'm finished asking them questions, I will tell them, I will say, well, I happen to be a follower of the way. And they always look at me kind of funny and with concern, and they say, well, follower of the way, what's that mean? They're concerned. They have this look of concern on their face. And, if I'm talking to them in person, but if they're on the phone, they'll say, what does that mean? And I always say, well, think about it. Follower of the way. And then I explain what I'm about to explain to you. Now, it's not that I mean a hill of beans. I don't mean a hill of beans in this world, but people often ask me, why do I say I'm a follower of the way instead of Baptist or even non-denominational? And sometimes they ask politely because they're curious, and other times they're just religious Rottweilers barking mad about yet another thing they don't like about me. Speaking of religious Rottweilers, under the Live tab and under the Recording tab, or the Video tab has the audio only and the Live tab has the video. You can watch an episode I did on Saturday. Yes, I was fired up in response to a letter I received. So I would encourage you to do that. And I'd be honored if you do that, actually. So a follower of the way. It's a term used in the New Testament to refer to early Christian believers. And you will frequently hear me say that we've got to go back to our Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek roots, but especially the Hebrew and Aramaic, because that's the culture from which our faith came. Right? You say, well, I'm not a Jew. I'm not trying to be a Jew. I don't want to be a Jew. And some folks say that with a little bit of anti-Semitism, want to be linked. And they look down on Jews because, they say, well, the Jews didn't accept Jesus. The Jews crucified Jesus. Well, I teach on that. Not completely correct. It's a massively growing movement of Messianic Jews, massively growing movement, and even Orthodox Jews who are not Messianic. Remember, God made a covenant with them. And there's much we can learn. They've had the documents, these ancient biblical documents, for thousands of years longer than we have. They've been studying them and living by them word by word and line by line. As my dear friend Pastor Steve says, line by line. So, we need to pay attention a little bit. They knew more about a lot of things than we do. So, the follower of the way, when you go back to the original culture, you will find this is the word Christian. The moniker Christian was a label. It was a, how could I put it? It was a pejorative, let's say. So it was not a positive thing. They weren't saying this in a way that was, they weren't being friendly when they were calling, those Christians over there. The Christians are rabble-rousing again. They're causing trouble again. You know what I'm saying? So this is what's interesting to me. I always have found that we monikered onto that name, and we, for one reason or another, we clicked onto that, and we said, yeah, this is what we're going to call ourselves. Just like the cross. We wear crosses now. I don't wear any crosses any longer, and I don't throw rocks at people that do. But that would be an offense to followers of the way. That would be an offense to wear the cross, because the cross was the ultimate disgrace. Now, yes, it's an empty cross for sure, and that's the way I would explain it if you wear it. See, I wear a cross that's empty because the cross, he vacated the cross, but he also vacated the grave. And so I think it's important to remember the vacated cross and the vacated grave. It served a very powerful purpose in our faith, in our redemption. So, but I think it's very important to recognize that little things don't mean a lot; they mean everything. So we have this situation where we're expected to generate a label for our faith. We're expected to be able to regurgitate to somebody what we are called. What are we called? And some years ago, I went through I don't know. I don't know that I would call it an awakening. Yeah, I would call it. You could call it an awakening. I'd always kind of been awake, but I started to realize that I was not taking seriously enough the important little things. Yeah, the big things, I'd given good attention to the big things, but not enough to the little things. So, what did I do? I started really looking at things. Labels. Why are churches called what they're called? Now, in my first doctorate, actually in my master's, I did a deep dive into some of the top 10 largest religions in the world, the most influential religions in the world. And then I looked at in my doctorate the subsets, the different, you've got, of course, you've got Protestant, you've got Catholic, you've got Judaism, you've got Islam, you've got all these different things. Islam is not a religion, by the way. It's a religious, political, and military ideology. One of these days, I'll do a teaching on that. As you know, I've studied Islam. I'm an internationally recognized expert on Islam in both the secular and the religious side. I've read the Quran 4 times. I read it one time in Arabic, another time in another related language, and then I read it in English twice. I've read the Umdat al-Salik, which is translated the traveler, the reliance of the traveler. And that's the book written by the most vaunted imams for the clerics and for how to be the best Muslim possible. So that is I've dedicated myself to study of that. So one of these days I'll do a study, I'll do a teaching on that, but I don't know that that's necessary at this point. There are other pressing things. So if you are a follower of the way, now I sometimes people will answer this in an honest way. They'll be very honest. They'll go, follower of the way. Is that a cult? And I will say, usually I'll laugh. And I try not to laugh, but I can't help it. It's just funny. But when I tell someone I'm a follower of the way, if they ask if it's a cult, if they say that out loud, I say, no, it's not a cult. Look, I'm just a humble follower of Yeshua. It's not a cult. You'd be shocked how many times I've been accused of being in or promoting a cult. And as you may have noticed, I'm less interested in denominational distinctions and quibbling than I am in following the teachings of Jesus Christ or the way. And I'm more interested in telling others about him. Now, this isn't to throw rocks at any other denomination. There are some denominations in some faiths that absolutely I have issues with some of their beliefs. Some I have issues with all their beliefs. But I also do not have an issue with their right to believe how they believe and to be treated with dignity and in accordance to how they deal with me. So I don't throw rocks at other denominations. I was raised independent fundamental Baptist, where the King James Version, the Authorized Edition, that's what Jesus carried, the 1611, that's the only one anybody's authorized to carry. And they're often shocked when I tell them, the Authorized Edition isn't wasn't authorized by Jesus. It was the only one that King James, who commissioned it, authorized the people who could read to read. So, but even still, I was raised that way, but then, I'd always heard my mother speak with less than an endorsement tone to her voice about Southern Baptists. She had an image of what Southern Baptists were, and she certainly had an image of what Catholics were about, and all of these things. And very little did she have to say about the Jews. She had a great respect for the Jews because they were God's chosen people. And I respected that, and I picked up on that early on in my life. However, there are some faiths that she just, quite frankly, didn't want anything really to do with. And one of them was Catholic. And I've said this on other broadcasts, and I'll say it now for those who are just now tuning in to me. When I was in the Navy, I had the opportunity to sing in the Navy. Every base has a chapel. Most bases have a chapel. And I sang from the beginning of my military time in the Navy choir. So I would sing the Protestant service, the Catholic service, and then the Hebrew service. And it was a very small group. The Hebrew group was very small. The Catholic, believe it or not, tended to be a larger group. And then the smaller group between that was the Protestants. And so I would sing all the different songs in the choir and all the things. And I developed a respect for all of them in that their dedication is quite something. Each of the faiths has some interesting things about them. I think we spend far too much time throwing rocks at other denominations, other faiths. We should focus on what we do and why we do it, knowing why we do it. That's, to me, quite important. So, all that said to say, the term the way, right? This is just what I think most accurately represents my faith focus and my practice, my orthopraxy, which is how you do your faith, how you live your faith. And the term the way was used to describe the teachings and practices of Jesus Christ, Yeshua Mashiach, Yeshua. And his followers, those that followed him around, again, they weren't referred to as Christians, they were referred to as followers of the way. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. So we believe that he is the Son of God and the promised Messiah. And this is why we believe how we believe. Hi, Katie. How are you? Good to see you. Maxwell. I happen to have some dear friends that are Maxwells. Bear Joe Maxwell, someone I love dearly. So the term the way is first mentioned in Acts. Just so you know, I'm not making it up. I think I'm going to be called. I think I'm going to call myself. Hey, Marcel. Hello from Austria. Marcel has a fantastic channel, by the way, where he cooks. He's a chef. He's a professional chef. And he has this multiple camera set up in his kitchen, and he teaches you how to cook these amazing things. It's ridiculous, the stuff he can cook. And that's what he does for a living. But his channel is fantastic. It's really, really interesting. Maybe if you can put that in, Marcel, if you can put that. I'm doing well, buddy. Doing well. Marcel's Welt. I don't know. Can you put in the chat what the name of it is? I'll put it out to everybody so they can check you out. Hey, he teaches how to make from start to finish. It's really, really cool. And he's funny. He's funny as all get out. And don't miss his Christmas decorations in his kitchen. I think they're still up. So the term the way is first mentioned in Acts 9:2. And that's where it's used to describe the followers of Yeshua in Damascus. So this is the International Standard Version. International Standard Version. I asked him for letters to take with him to the synagogues in Damascus, that's in Syria, modern-day Syria, so that if he found any men or women belonging to the way, he might bring them in chains to Jerusalem. Wow. Yikes. Acts 9:2 in the International Standard Version. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning. Hey, you are a hard worker. I appreciate that, brother. So I asked him for letters. I asked him for letters to take with him to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any men or women belonging to the way, he might bring them in chains to Jerusalem. The term the way is also used in other passages of the New Testament, including Acts 19:9, Acts 19:9, 23, and 24:14. It's where it's used to describe early Christian believers. Today, Marzl's Welt, yes, that's what it's called, MARZL''S''WELT, Marzl's Welt. So that's cool. He is a cool. I'm telling you, it is really, really cool. And some of the stuff I learned by watching it, it's like, whoa, I didn't know. You learn how professionals do it. And but he uses all normal stuff to make it. I don't know how he does it. And I'm always hungry. When I watch it, I'm always hungry, which is not good. Today, the term the way is still used by some Christian groups and communities as a way to emphasize the centrality of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, in our faith, and to emphasize the importance of following his teachings and his example. Look, I'm just a beggar who found the bread of life, who's helping other hungry people find that same bread. I am a follower of the way. Now, I want to share with you why this, you might think this, what does this have to do with being him saying follower of the way and the origin of follower of the way and why he's called that and all these things. But I want to share with you why it's important to work on your emotional intelligence. You know, we have our IQ, our intelligence quotient, but then there's also the emotional intelligence. And as we come into the holidays, this really comes into play. So the statement, you heard me say it yesterday, and you heard me say it on Saturday. The statement, psychology is more infectious than the flu, speaks to the profound way in which human thoughts, emotions, and behaviors spread among people. Here's a deeper look at this idea. Emotional contagion. Emotional contagion. Humans are wired to pick up on each other's emotional states. When somebody is happy, anxious, or angry, their mood can quickly influence those around them. And you know that. If you live with a person, if you're married to a person, if you have children, you know that their moods a lot of times will influence you. They will influence you. Good, bad, or indifferent. Happy, anxious, or angry. Sad. Some that are in hopeless mood, that'll influence you. You have to be careful about that. So that's called emotional contagion. This phenomenon often occurs subconsciously. You don't realize that that's happening, and it spreads like a social virus, if you will. But then the next thing is groupthink and peer pressure. Groupthink and peer pressure. Psychology influences group dynamics. The ideas, beliefs, and behaviors, they spread quickly within groups due to the desire for acceptance. You're in that group because you want to be accepted. And other people want to be accepted. And so conformity happens, just as a natural byproduct of that. So what can happen from this? This can lead to positive trends, like adopting healthy habits, or harmful outcomes like panic or mob mentality. So then there's social media amplifications. And when I was writing this, I really wanted to include something about this, because social media is a powerful influence now. In today's digital age, psychological infections spread faster than really ever through social media, memes, viral trends, divisive narratives. You know, the negative spreads so quickly. It's in moments, spreads in moments to millions and millions of people. When someone says, oh, I went viral. Now, I did go viral in a couple of things that I've done, a few million views. But I didn't seek to replicate that just for the sake of going viral, but viral, it's a game changer. Good or bad? Good or bad? I don't know if you've ever experienced it. Somebody coming up against you. Maybe you did a post and someone came up against you, and boy, then all of a sudden another one jumped in, and then another one jumped in, and another one jumped in. There are social media platforms for neighborhoods. One of them's called Nextdoor. And I don't get on that because, very rarely I should say, because it's just, we had a version of that where we used to live for the town. And I thought, wow, man, these people are rude. These people are mean. And very often they don't know what they're talking about. So these infections, these psychological infections, they spread faster and faster and faster. It's millions of moments. And then it shapes the collective thought and behavior. Mirror neurons. Now, this one's a little techie. Number 4 is mirror neurons and imitation. Our brains are equipped with mirror neurons. And if you study the brain, you will find the mirror neurons to be very, very important. They help us to empathize and imitate others. And this neurological feature explains why yawning, laughter, or even stress can be contagious. You see somebody yawn. Maybe you don't yawn that way, but maybe you just yawned. Maybe if you're listening in the car and you heard me yawn, I wonder if you yawned. It's a real thing. It's contagious. Mirror neurons and imitation. So laughter, not just yawning, but laughter. You hear somebody laughing, sometimes you laugh. I see those babies laughing. When I see my grandson laugh, the way he laughs, just full belly laugh, full on, nothing held back. I love it. I love it. And I just laugh. I don't even have to have the volume. I can just see him and see him so happy and smiling so big. That's contagious. But also the negative can be contagious. So here's number 5, cultural and normative shifts. Entire societies can undergo psychological shifts based on the ideas that spread through influential leaders, media, or movements. Over time, this can reshape values, norms, and behaviors on a massive scale. And all we have to do is look at the DEI movement, diversity, equity, and inclusion. All we have to do is look at the BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement. They seized upon a lie. They are not good people. Most of them are in jail. It's clear that they extorted money. I think hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And because people wanted to virtue signal, everything moved toward that. You see signs in yards, BLM signs. You see all kinds of people. You see entire NFL fields. You see the basketball courts in the NBA and the WNBA. You see soccer teams and the professional soccer. You even see it extend to the colleges. It's a movement, and it moves in a direction. It's like a tidal wave. And sadly, it reshapes values, norms, and behaviors. Now, this is on a massive scale, but it could be for good. In essence, while the flu spreads biologically, psychology spreads socially and emotionally, influencing minds and shaping behaviors at a pace and a scale that sometimes can feel unstoppable. It can actually feel unstoppable. This underscores the power of human interaction and the need for awareness of the psychological influences in our lives. Now, when I say, obviously I said this for a reason, and I want to link the two for you the best that I can. I talked about being a follower of the way. And Yeshua, without the benefit of social media, without the benefit of television, without anything really, but people telling people, word to word of mouth, And so, yeah, Samantha, you're absolutely right. Katie mentioned that I yawned, then she yawned, and then the dog yawned. That's funny. And then Samantha mentioned she works at a college, and this groupthink, this way things go is just, you look at the I don't call them protests, I call them riots. When you break into a place and you spray paint and you break and you camp out on the quad and you make a total mess of things, and you're threatening Jews. No. That's time for the law to come in and start busting heads and locking folks up and kicking them out. But sadly, many of those schools, the Ivy Leagues, the top schools allegedly in our country, the leaders of them encouraged it. They're part of it. So that groupthink, and it's a completely uneducated bunch. I mean, you say, well, wait a second, didn't you just say they're from the Ivy League, some of the top schools? Well, you can be uneducated. You can be very, very well sheepskinned. You can have lots and lots of sheepskins on the wall, but you can be very poorly educated. So one of the things that I seek to do in my teaching, in both my books, my public speaking, and in this, is I want to help people learn how to think critically, how to think beneficially. And one of the biggest things we can think about is our faith. How do we live out our faith? So I say, very often, I identify as a believer. I identify as a follower of Yeshua. I identify as a follower of the way. I'm not perfect. I'm so far from perfect. I'm as broken a person as you think you'll ever meet. But I also know I'm redeemed. So the direction I go in is not a direction that really I was led as a child, because this is not at all what I was taught as a child in the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. Nothing against the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. You do you. Nothing against any of them. Somebody said, and very often when I read Scripture, I will say, the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. That is something that people will say, well, that's very Catholic of you. And in fact, I've had it pointed out. Different people, I apologize, I'm having trouble sitting up straight today. I got to put my brace back on. A lot of people, I'd say 4 or 5, have sent me messages saying, hey, there's a lot of Catholicism in your... And then I have to remind them, the word of the Lord, thanks be to God, is from Scripture. And a reverence for the word of God to man shouldn't just be a Catholic thing. It should be a every faith thing. So I read that to remind myself of what I'm reading, how powerful it is. This is why my hand is on the Bible when I do these podcasts. It's just so important to me. I don't think I'm perfect because I know I'm not perfect. I'm not part of a cult. I'm just a beggar who found the bread of life. I'm a follower of the way, trying to help other people find that same bread. We're trying to just walk the way, right? The way. We're trying to find a way to walk in the way. Jesus sought to persecute followers of... So let me go back. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to, just because it fits. So I mentioned the way is first mentioned in Acts 9:2, when Shaul, or Paul, before his transformation, his encounter with Yeshua, his whole life was sought to persecute followers of Ha-derech. So in the complete Jewish Bible, this is how Acts 9:1 and 2, I'll give you 1 as well. He went to the Kohen Hagadol, and he asked them, these are the religious leaders, for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, which is Damascus, authorizing him to arrest any people he might find, whether men or women, who belong to the way, and bring them back to Jerusalem. This is again Acts 9, 1 and 2. So, this is why it is so important to really recognize how transformative God can be. Because let's think about what he did in Paul and Shawn. You may be thinking as Thanksgiving comes, you know, a lot of times there's a lack of personal identity. I guess I'll put it that way. And I've counseled countless people. And as some of you know, I used to have a practice before I got hurt. And when I would counsel them, what I would find is they don't know who they are. They've got lots of labels, but they don't know who they are. And a lot of times, most of the time, I'd say almost all the time, the reason they don't know who they are is because they don't know whose they are. And as we come into holidays, this can be a super, super tough time for lots and lots of people. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're listening out there and you're dreading. You're dreading because you have toxic family, or maybe you don't have any family around you at all. Maybe your Thanksgiving and your Christmas is going to be very quiet. Maybe there's going to be struggle. Maybe you're going to struggle to bite your tongue and not say things that you know there's no benefit in you saying. You just get through. You have to know who you are. You have to know who you are and whose you are. I don't call myself a follower of the way because I need a label. I don't call myself a follower of the way because it makes it easier, because it doesn't. When you call yourself a follower of the way, traditional Protestant faiths just shake their heads and they, what are you doing? What are you doing? But here's the thing. Even though I know that I am as flawed a person as you'll ever run across, I know whose I am. I follow the way, the truth, and the life. I follow the only way to my redemption, the only way to your redemption. I can't encourage you enough. Listen, I'll be on at 1 o'clock this afternoon with Christopher on Christopher Brock's channel. I'll be talking about what I talked about yesterday. And if you didn't catch that, and you want to catch it again, you're welcome. You're invited. But listen, I'll be away part of the time for Thanksgiving. I won't be able to do a broadcast. I want you to understand that no matter what your circumstance is, no matter if you feel all alone, your identity, your moniker, your label is a follower of the way. If you believe in Jesus, if you've placed your faith in Christ, if you asked him into your heart, I'm telling you, he'll change you. He'll improve you. He'll grow you. Won't always be easy. It's not ever always easy. Trust me when I tell you. I think sometimes when you find out who you are, when you learn who you are, there's no better thing you can learn about yourself than whose you are. God bless you. I hope that you have a happy, happy Thanksgiving wherever you are in the world. Absolutely know that you are loved. Shalom, shalom, shalom alaikum.